Hey guys, welcome back to Curls on Demand. And if you haven't noticed, um, my name on all my social media, including YouTube, have changed to Curls on Demand. It's a bit of rebranding. We're not doing Curly's 291 anymore. We're doing Curls on Demand. And so I have a new Instagram account, and my YouTube name is now Curls on Demand. And so that's how we're going forward. Okay. All right. So I've had this channel for like about 2 years now, and like we're just like talking to people over like Instagram DMs and then asking for like recommendations and doing like some like consulting and stuff. I've noticed that even though like I put up videos and a bunch of things and I think that's going to be helpful, a lot of people don't know the basics of like having a hair regimen, or like having products, go-to products that you know that your hair actually likes, and have figured that out as yet. So I've decided that I'm gonna do a bunch of series on just the basics of natural hair, the basics of taking care of natural hair. So this first series is gonna be on hair regimens. And as you know, having a good hair regimen is the key to growing healthy hair. So what I've done is I've come up with like 5 different types of naturals and 5 different hair regimens for these types of naturals. And of course, there are going to be similarities across the board, but there are just like little tweaks and little differences depending on the type of natural you are. So in this series, I'm going to go with the first type of natural will be the lazy hair natural. The second type of natural will be the active natural. So like if you like you go to the gym a lot, or like you're a Peloton junkie or anything like that, meaning you sweat a lot because you work out a lot, then there's one regimen for that. The third one, I believe is gonna be what's the third one? The third one is gonna be the curly girl method hair regimen. The fourth one is gonna be the experimental natural hair regimen for all you naturals who like to experiment with a bunch of things to grow your hair and stuff. There's that one. And then the third one is a protective style / wig type natural. And so we're gonna go through each of these, not in this video, but I'm gonna do 5 videos covering all of them, and this being the first video. So today we're gonna talk about the hair regimen for a lazy natural. Now, this is my hair regimen for a lazy natural. Everybody has something different, and of course this is just the basics, and you can like build on that how you want, how you'd like, but this is what I see as the basics for growing healthy hair if you are lazy natural. All right, let's just get into the meat of the matter. Okay. All right, let's talk about the lazy hair natural for a little bit. So I'm technically a lazy hair natural, but because I have YouTube, then I tend to like do my hair more often than I would before I started doing YouTube. But with the lazy hair natural, pretty much the aim is to do less work and still reap the rewards of having healthy, long growing hair, right? You don't want to be putting too much energy into this and trying a whole bunch of things like the experimental natural, who try all the new trends and everything to get the hair growing. You just want to do the basics and have exponential hair growth, which is not necessarily the case, but I do have a good, I think, regimen for that. So I will put that up on the screen so you will see. And also, I'll put a link for the actual regimen down below in the description if you want that, just to remind you of how to have the regimen, or just to remind you of what the regimen looks like. Okay, so if you see me looking down a bit, I have a few notes that I just wanted to cover and go into detail for each step, right? All right. So the first step is to shampoo or co-wash once a week or twice a week. And that could be once a month for you, but it will depend. How much you shampoo will depend on what you're putting in your hair, if you have product buildup or anything like that. So if you have product buildup, then you probably want to be washing your hair at least once a week to remove that product buildup. But if you're like using like a leave-in and then you're using natural butters, natural oils, and stuff like that, you probably can hold out for like an entire month and then co-wash in between to like release your hair of some of that buildup, and then just wash at the end of the month. But that's totally up to you, but you need to have a schedule for shampooing your hair. And considering you are lazy, doing it once a month is probably not a bad thing, but that also you have to also make sure that you don't have product buildup throughout that month. Okay, so I'd recommend doing it once a week. That's how I do it. I wash my hair once a week, um, and to get rid of all that product buildup, and then we're Gucci. And as I said, you can go longer than that if you wanted to, but you need to make sure that if you're doing that, you're using more natural products so that the product buildup on your hair is not as bad. The next step is to deep condition with heat every wash day or every week. And I know that sounds like a lot of work for being a lazy natural. But deep conditioning is so key to healthy hair. I'm not saying you can't deep condition every month when you wash, but I'm saying if you do decide to follow this regimen, then every time you wash your hair, if you wash your hair every week, you need to deep condition every week. And now I understand that deep conditioning every week may be a lot, especially for like a lazy natural. So if you are not going to wash your hair every week and you're going to wash it every 2 weeks or every month, every single time you have a wash day, you need to deep condition your hair. And that deep conditioning will look different every time. Sometimes your hair might be dry and so it needs more moisture. So then you will use more of a moisturizing deep conditioner. And then if your hair is brittle and breaking, especially at the ends, it's probably a sign that you need protein in there. So you do more of an intense protein treatment or protein treatment when you see the signs that you need a protein treatment. I do have a video on everything about protein treatments when it's needed, blah blah blah, and so I'll put a link somewhere up here and somewhere in the description. But your deep conditioning will look different based on what your hair needs when you go ahead and do it on that specific wash day, whatever that looks like for you as a lazy natural. For some people, as I said, it will look like a week, every week. For some people, it will look like every 2 weeks. And for some people, it will look like every month. But you need to make sure that every time you have a wash day, you deep conditioning. That is key. Okay, so the next step for your hair regimen is to moisturize your hair using the LCO or the LOC method. Now, the LOC method is usually recommended for people with high porosity hair. And LOC really just means liquid oil cream. And that's just the order in which you should apply product to your hair. So the first step would be the liquid. And the liquid is most likely and most of the times water, right? And then you would go to an oil, any type of oil that you currently use for your hair, olive oil, almond, sweet almond oil, or any oil concoction that you have, you can put that on your hair. And then the next one would be to add cream, like a moisturizer, right? Whatever moisturizer that you currently use that you know is good for your hair. That's usually what they recommend. That's usually the order of products that they recommend for people with high porosity hair. I don't know why I'm struggling with porosity. That's so crazy to me. Anyways, so the next one is the LCO method. And so that would be liquid, cream, and then oil. You seal with oil. And that's usually recommended for people with um low porosity hair. And so you'd put the liquid first, which most of the times looks like water or whatever liquid that you currently put on your hair. Then it would be the cream, your moisturizer, leave-ins, whatever it is that works for your hair and that you know works for your hair. And then an oil to seal. And there's a slew of oils that sealing oils. I can also do a video on the difference between moisturizing and sealing oils for you so that you have an idea what I'm talking about. So once I do that video, I'll put a link down below. Don't worry about it. I got you. So the next step is to oil your scalp. I know that we focus on like moisturizing our hair, sealing our hair, making sure that our hair is always like moisturized and feeling great. But sometimes we forget about our scalp. And so moisturizing your scalp is just as important as moisturizing your strands because your scalp is where your hair grows from. Like, you can't just water the leaves of a plant and not water the soil. It don't make sense. It not gonna work. Okay? So you need to moisturize your scalp, and usually that's done with using an oil. You can use a moisturizing oil. I recommend using jojoba oil only because it's very similar to that of sebum, which is the natural oil the natural occurring oil of your scalp, sebum, and jojoba is very similar to that. So starting off with like jojoba oil could be a good start for you in moisturizing your scalp. And also, starting with about moisturizing every 2 to 3 days is usually a good start to ensuring that your scalp is always moisturized and not out here dry or parched. Okay, so the next step is to reduce hair manipulation by tucking in your ends with buns or wearing protective hairstyles. Really, the big idea here is to keep your hair stretched and to keep your ends tucked in. If your ends are tucked in, then less likely of breakage, and if your hair is stretched, then less likely of your hair calling on each other and causing knots that end up breaking anyways. So if you can reduce snagging and breakage of your hair in any way by doing that, then the more likely you are to retain length and the more likely you are to see growth over the years or months, whichever you'd like. Okay, so the last step I know is a very touchy one, but I'm gonna say it anyways because you'll need to hear it. Trim your ends. Trim your ends, sis. Please trim your ends. Okay? Now, I know being a lazy natural and all, you probably don't get the time to trim your ends every 6 or 8 weeks. I understand that. I totally understand that. A lot of us naturals love holding on to our ends in the name of long hair. But really, it makes no sense to have long hair that has bad dead ends than to have shorter hair that has flourishing and moisturized and great ends. So, in order to have healthy hair, you also need to have healthy ends. So, trim those ends when they need to be trimmed. Usually, the recommendation is between 8 to 12 weeks, I believe, 8 to 12 weeks. But you can start off with just doing it every 6 months. I do mine every 6 months, and sometimes in between, I do like little snips because I can see those split ends. But if you start with every 6 months, then you can start seeing like when it is your hair starts shedding more, and then you can start cutting and trimming in between those 6 months, and then it becomes more of a routine. So start with 6 months, every 6 months, and then work your way in doing it a little more often. Because ain't nobody got time for these jaggedy ends. And I do have a video on how to trim your ends, when to know if your ends need trimming, and all that kind of stuff. Everything about trimming your hair, different ways to trim your hair if you want to do it at home. So I'll also link that down below and somewhere up here. But these are the 6 steps for having a good, healthy hair regimen for somebody who considers themselves a lazy natural. And so the next episode, I'm going to be covering active naturals, a good hair regimen for active naturals, anybody who loves to work out, who's a workout junkie, who's a Peloton junkie, who loves to sweat, who enjoys sweating. I don't care. But if you work out a lot, then your regimen will look slightly different from that of a lazy natural. And so I will be doing that in the next episode. And so I hope you stay tuned for the next episode. And I'll see you there. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe and join the family.